Welcome back. Today we'll be talking about a highly contentious topic, whether this mic is really working. Is it wireless or does it really need to be connected? Today we'll be talking about goal setting and how to effectively make your goals. This is my notebook where I've got my New Year's resolutions. I don't want to call them resolutions, but just for the sake of the fact that I made them during the new year, we're going to call them resolutions. In it we have some journaling, or some more journaling, a little writing, some goal setting, and some writing about how that went. And we also have the goals for this year. Now I'm gonna go about talking about how you set the goals, not so much the goals in general, but the methodology behind the goals. I think that's a little bit more important. So now we have our fire in the back and we have our goals. Let's get into this. So when you're setting the goals, the first thing you have to think about is simple. What do you want the life to look like? If we're talking about goals in terms of your life, what would you want your life to look like? You know, do you want to have a new house? Do you want to make more friends? Do you want to get closer to God? All those things factor in when you're making up new goals. It's actually getting pretty hot in here. Let me turn off the heater. In this cost of living crisis, I had the heater on, so we had to turn that one off pretty quick. All of these factor in when you're making a new goal, and they all play a part in making sure that you know exactly where you're going. This is the main key for everything we're going to talk about. If you took one thing away from how to set goals, is to do things that you kind of would do anyway. So you're always going to work. So why not have a goal for promotion? You know, you always wanted to travel. So why not have a goal to visit a certain amount of countries by the end of the year? You know, stuff that you might have already done anyway. That's a good place to start when you're making your goals. So I like to section them off into three, into like a pie. You want to section them off into a pie. The first third of the pie is all about your main goals. These are the core basics. These aren't so specific. They're slightly vapid. There's a little bit of wiggle room here, and that's the key. You want a little bit of wiggle room. You want to set a few goals here, maybe one or two, but you want a little bit of wiggle room. The reason you want some wiggle room is because these are the absolute main goals. If you achieve these, you have either failed or you have succeeded. But sometimes the way we envision success later on is not the way we envision success when we started off this journey. So what you need to do is you need to give yourself some wiggle room to say, okay, I may have not achieved exactly what I said at the start of this journey. However, that's because I've grown. We're not looking for the type of vagueness where it's like, oh, you can fail but still pass at the same time. No. We don't do that here. What we're looking for is wiggle rooms that you can change or adapt to new goals without actually having to come back and physically change these ones. If we look at, for example, my 2022 goals, one of the main goals, we roll it back a couple of years. Some of the goals that I wrote down, well, in the main first third, was to break most of my bad habits. How was I going to quantify this? I wasn't really sure, but I wrote it down knowing that there was wiggle room here. Because what breaking most of my bad habits meant, it could kind of change. Could breaking most of them mean that I've stopped doing the habit most of the time? Does it mean that it's extinguished all the time? Does it mean that I have to, stop doing, 85% of all of my bad habits? What if I discover new bad habits? All this stuff you don't realize when you're actually making the goals. Think of it as, the tax. We're going to call it goal tax. And this is the stuff that creeps up on you as you're achieving your goals. Think of it like you're building a house. Now, when you're building a house, you lay down the foundations. They might say that's going to cost you, 100,000 to build the foundations of this house. But as you're going along with the process of building the house, you realize, oh no, we need more things. So that's an extra 50,000, extra 20,000 here, extra 5,000 there. That's the same principle when you're setting goals. You have to leave room for your budget to stretch. because it might be a lot more complicated than you originally anticipate. This isn't scripted, but that was a tough one to get out in one breath. So what you want to do is that you want to make slightly vapid, but not overly vapid goals. Just enough with a certain wiggle room. Going back to that example, so we know we want to break most of the bad habits, and we have some habits in mind. What if we discover new bad habits? Well, we can kind of factor those in and kind of weigh it up, you know, depending on how much bad habits we had at the start of the year. And then let's just compare that to who we were at the start of the year to who we are at the end of the year. And this is why we need a vision of where we want to be by the end of the year. Because if we have a vision of where we want to be by the end of the year, we can compare those to our ever so slightly vapid goals. And depending on how close they are, is depending on whether we achieve those goals or not. For your next 2/3, this is where it gets kind of spicy because it all depends on how much goals you want to set. I always say you should set 6 targets. 2 out of 6 would be the original goals that weren't entirely specific but weren't really vapid either, somewhere in between like we just talked about. So the next 4 out of 6 goals would be ultra specific goals. These are ultra specific goals. When you're setting these goals, you aren't setting these goals to reach your intended target. You're setting these goals to reach the 2 vapid goals. See, the 2 vapid goals is what's going to get you where you need to be. But those 4 goals is stuff you need to tick off the list in order to achieve those goals. We're going to call these goals V goals for vapid goals and S goals for specific goals. 2/3 needs to be S goals for specific and 1/3 needs to be V goals for vapid. Going back to the example, I want to break most of my bad habits. For an S goal, to work with that, don't be late to 8 out of 10 classes you have that week. And the specific goal would help you achieve the vapid goal. And the vapid goal would help you achieve who you are. Think of it like a pyramid that you would like to climb. But in order to climb, you have to start at the bottom. So you start with the specific goals, and the specific goals gives you the vapid goals, and the vapid goals gives you who you want to. That is my take. If you want any more key advice, then make sure to like, subscribe, and see you in the next one. Ooh, that was tough. That was tough. Little side note, I have been up. It's currently 11:20. I was meant to be in bed at 10:30. I am tired. I'm so tired. Like, you actually have no idea how tired I am. It is crazy. Absolutely crazy. But we're on this grind, boy. We're on this grind. Hopefully this video doesn't turn out terribly. If it does, then yeah, I can't lie. Oh man. Cut our losses, on to the next video. That's the way we're going, because video after video is just such a steep learning curve here. I don't know how I'm going to do this. But hey, I guess we'll see in the future whether I do this or not.